Let's get right into it. I want to say, you played for the #1 candidate, seemingly, for the job. Would Gary Kubiak be your choice for the job here?
I don't have as much information as John Elway does, obviously, about all of the candidates, but I played for the man for 5 years, and just basing my opinion and my answer on what happened during that 5 years with him, as well as Sunday's playoff loss, no doubt, because he would never let his team step foot on a field that uninspired, especially when it mattered most. There's no doubt in my mind.
All right, you know, before we talk a little bit more about Gary Kubiak, I want to ask you about what you just said, because I've been using the same description of the team that John Fox coaches. Uninspired, I said lacked killer instinct, not a risk taker. Did you played for John Fox?
And I wrote a whole column about the team lacked soul.
Yeah, I read that. That was good.
You played on teams where there was soul, and it's tough to define that, but it's sort of like the Supreme Court said about pornography. When you know it, you recognize it. And I don't know if the analogy works, but Tom Jackson, when you were a kid, maybe before you were a kid, had soul. That team in '77 had soul. The team in the '90s had soul on it. I didn't see any soul on this team whatsoever.
Well, yeah, and I want to ask you to follow up on that. You played for John Fox. I'm guessing you liked him because he's a very likable guy. But I'm wondering, was there a question in the locker room ever about a lack of killer instinct, about a lack of inspiration, about a lack of preparedness? Did that ever come up?
No, it never came up. I always trusted John Fox. I did enjoy him as a head ball coach. There were some things that, like I said, I spent 5 years with Gary Kubiak. There are some distinct differences between the two that stand out to me still to this day, like speed of practice being one of them. You know, John Fox he had these long, drawn-out, kind of slow-tempoed practices. He would make the day go all the way till 5 o'clock, and we'd hours and hours upon meeting where Coach Kubiak, the practice was as fast as can be. We were moving from drill to drill. He didn't like, if you were walking, you were wrong. You were getting yelled at. Meetings, he would never just meet just to meet. It was always purposeful, and we were out of the building by, 2:30, 3 o'clock a lot of times.
So did you feel more ready on Sundays under Kubiak than maybe you did under Fox?
I felt better because I wasn't, I wasn't practicing as long. I wasn't in meetings as long, and here's one difference that I can give you. Saturday nights, when Coach Gary Kubiak would speak, everybody in that room would get chills on their arms. We'd all go to team snack just fired up, ready to run through a brick wall for the guy. There's an element of ho-hum to John Fox where, Saturday nights you kind of walk out of there like, all right, it's another ball game. So you want to bleed for a guy like Coach Gary Kubiak. Not that I didn't want to bleed for Coach John Fox, but there's a different way they go about speaking to the team. And like I said, I love Gary Kubiak. I'd take a bullet for that man. I think he's a phenomenal football coach. I really do.
Yeah, and you know what? As strongly as I feel about Gary Kubiak, I'd let you take a bullet for him too.
Really? Well, let me ask you: do you guys like him? Do you guys like him as?
Well, we know Gary very well. I consider Gary a friend.
Sure.
Talk to him once in a great while. And my only question with Gary is, and I brought this up before on the show, he was a reluctant head coach. He had to be talked into taking the Houston job. He took the CU job and then reneged the next day because he wasn't comfortable being in that role and being in the spotlight. And last weekend, he puts out this statement that he's not going to interview for head coaching jobs because he just wants to remain the offensive coordinator in Baltimore. So if I'm John Elway, I need to look in his eyes and I need to ask him, do you really want to be a head coach? Are you really committed? Are you healthy enough to be a head coach? Because he had the problems in Houston collapsing on the field. If I'm convinced after looking in his eyes that Gary wants to do this and he can give it his all and he can roll up his sleeves and he'll be living it and breathing it and drinking it 7 days a week, then I'm hiring him.
Do you want in your life, and you played for a number of different people, players coach? That's what John Fox was considered, a player's coach, or somebody. You bring up what you said the other day. You use that word that starts with a P and rhymes with sick.
Prick. Somebody told me there needs to be a prick on the coaching staff, and there really wasn't one on this coaching staff. And Peyton took on that role, and some players resented it. But we'll ask you about that a little bit later.
Okay.
Or you want to ask him now?
Yeah, I was asking him now. I mean, who would you rather play?
Is that a fair depiction of what went on?
I've played with several different head coaches where, you pull into the parking lot and you get knots in your stomach because you're going to be treated so poorly, and they always wanted you walking around on eggshells, like at any moment you could be cut. And it sucks. It's no fun. It's not fun going to work. I'm a business management major at Colorado State. So employee satisfaction, you will achieve better results. So when you go into work feeling good about things, feeling satisfied, feeling like you're part of a positive cause, you will perform better. So I don't think the next head coach needs to be a prick, needs to be a jerk, needs to treat players like that. I honestly believe that in the NFL, players perform better for coaches when they play for them rather than in spite of them.